Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. I'm Coach Matt Bartley, and I'm here today with Coach Chris Chudada. Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here. Second of all, I played football at Catholic Memorial for 3 years and Waukesha North my senior year. Graduated in '94. Was able to play college football at Marquette University for their club football team. We played D3 schools, Maranatha, Carroll College. Anyway, it's been a while. And then I played semi-pro football for about 8 years, and started when I began an Ironman football league. It was a semi-pro football league for adults when I got out of high school, because I had a problem with not playing football after high school. I mean, I got to play college for 3 years, but I wanted to continue to play.
Right.
And I made this league, and we started out with 6 teams, and we had a schedule. It's like the working man's NFL. Guys had to pay league fees, pay for trophies, referees, all that stuff. League oriented, and it worked out great. And 15 years later, the league graduated from just this working just on sandlot, playing football with pads on, to we're playing in stadiums.
Nice.
We had national sponsors. We had Time Warner Cable televise our games. Everything was going great, but there came a time where I figured I reached the peak, and I couldn't do anything more for the league. It just reached its peak, and it was a great 15 years, and I wanted another challenge. And that challenge was, I've always wanted to get into coaching somehow. So I was given my first opportunity at South Milwaukee High School in 2010. I sold the league. I coached inside linebackers and loved it. And it was a 45-minute trip away. So now I was starting a family. So I had to find something a little closer. So the following year, I went to Whitnall in Hills Corners. That was 15 minutes away from my house. And it just grew from there. And I've been this will be my 11th season coaching. I've been a defense coordinator. I've been all on the sides, the defensive side of the ball, of course, secondary, defensive line, linebackers. I specialize in linebacking play. Been doing that the most. And then I coach offensive line. It's been my 3rd year coaching offensive line for Waukesha North.
Hey, and what's nice is, if I was to go back and coach another position, I've been coaching now almost 30 years. I would, if I had to pick, like, hey, you can go coach any other position other than linebackers, what would you pick? I'd go pick the offensive line, because I love those guys. Work hard, never care about who gets credit. They just want to win games.
Exactly. It's a selfish position, and the reason I like this, because not only did I play it in semi-pro in high school and college, but also it's being a defensive coach. You like that aggressiveness. You like that smash mouth, in your face kind of style. And the only thing on offense, to be honest with you, not the rip on the receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks. The offensive line's the nastiest guys on the field. So that's where I wanted to be. Had the opportunity to do that, and it's been working great so far. And I'm really glad where I am right now. Waukesha North is a great fit for me.
And, I'm sure those players at Waukesha North also appreciate your effort of how much coaching you give to them. And, you talked about playing there in Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin has probably one of the best D3 situations.
Yes.
Because, here in Ohio, we have a ton of D3 schools, but they're all private schools.
Right. Whereas
the Wisconsin State Network, I think, is Madison the only one that's Division I and everybody else is D3?
Correct.
Right. I mean, that's, if they could ever figure that out here in Ohio, we might be able to compete with Wisconsin collegiately someday. other than the Ohio State and University of Cincinnati,
right.
And all the MAC schools. We got the MAC schools, but we have I think we have like 23 Division III schools, but they're all private schools, and it's $50,000 a year to go there. Yeah,
that's tough. Tuition's tough, and the state schools here are really good, because a lot of the players that I coach go and play D3 football. I mean, I've had one Division I athlete that was fortunate to coach, but a lot of players go on. If they go on to play college football, they go D3. And there's a program here in Wisconsin that's really successful. Actually, we have two who are really successful, and they hate each other: Whitewater and Oshkosh.
Right.
So. Great programs, great coaches. I can't say enough about them.
Well, we know here in Ohio, Whitewater, because Mount Union and Whitewater used to battle.
Yeah.
It seemed like every year, whether it was the semis or the finals, those two were going to get matched up. So we know
Yep.
Whitewater well here in Ohio. Hey, Coach, it's been a crazy 2020, and, COVID here in Ohio has made some changes to our schedule, but we did get a full football season in. What has COVID done to you guys in Wisconsin this year?
Oh, man. Other than flip us upside down and inside out, the thing is, I give the kids all the credit in the world. They handled it like champs. We had a lot of things, a lot of adversity that we had to overcome this year. Our JV, we only played 3 games due to COVID. Our whole JV team was one of the guys that was tested for COVID and it was positive. So that means we all rode the bus together. So that means we were all quarantined for a bit there. So we lost we have lost our entire JV. So our varsity actually went into a game against a very good team in week 3, and they had no backups. We really were playing Ironman football. Oof. And we got our butts kicked, and we had several injuries in that game because guys are going both ways, and they get hurt. It was unfortunate, but I got to give all the credit in the world to these kids because they never gave up. They bounced back. They handled diversity like champs, and I'm very proud of our football team and the way how they came together and did that because COVID injuries. Every day we got the scare or the worry that our season might be canceled. It's a lot for coaches. It's a lot for a 16-year-old kid. I mean, I've never went through that. I mean, thank God I've never went through where I had to worry about playing football the next day or whatever. That's why these kids just, I can't say enough about them. They handled it great and they pushed through it and they conquered adversity. I love it.
And I think that, for everybody who got to play this fall, I think all those coaches and players are never going to take for granted the opportunity to participate because, and we made it through pretty much unscathed. We never had a positive test, knock on wood.
Yep.
Right. But we did have a couple kids get close contacted out for being near a kid in school. And unfortunately, it was our starting outside linebacker with 2 games to go in our season. And it really hurt, like you talked about playing Ironman football. It really hurt us because now we're playing a guy who is not used to playing. And, I think you're absolutely right. The kids showed us through this how resilient they can be. And, it's not always the best way. It's not always the easy way. But, we're at least going to try to get something done. So that's great to hear that you guys got a season in. And, hopefully, we talked earlier, hopefully this is going to be over soon and we can get back to just, playing ball where we don't have to worry about all the protocols.
Absolutely. Not only did the kids persevere, but I think the coaches did too. I think the coaches did a great job. And, when we lose a kid to COVID, like you said, you lost your outside linebacker. Well, a lot of our kids, all of our studs play both ways. So not only do we lose an outside linebacker, but we lose our starting tight end. And I think as coaches, we did a great job in, putting these pieces together, putting a roster together, putting a competitive roster together, and with all these pieces, because like I said, like you said, these JV guys don't get a lot of playing time. They don't get a lot of reps. And now you're asking them to step in and play a varsity game on a very competitive level. And it's up to us coaches to coach them up and get them ready. I think it just made us better as coaches. It was a headache. Don't get me wrong. It was a headache, but it makes us better as coaches and it makes us more prepared, throughout our careers.
Yeah, and I was joking with one of the other assistants that I coach with. I said, if I never have to ask the 5 questions, do you have a fever? Do you have a cough? Do you have a sore throat? Do you have shortness of breath? If you had contact with COVID-19, if I never have to ask those 5 questions again, it'll be too soon. And I shudder now when I hear somebody say, stay 6 feet apart, because that's all we would do during all practice and at games. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. So absolutely, coaches have done a great job too. So, Coach, I'm glad you came on here because, you said your specialty is the 4-2-5. At my core, I am an even front guy. I have coached the 4-4, the 4-2-5, the 4-3. But I think that where everybody, if you're an even front guy, sooner or later, you're going to kind of get back to that 4-2-5 based on what offenses are doing now.
Correct.
So how do you go about preparing your linebackers in a 4-2-5?
Well, we play a lot of spread teams, so don't get me wrong. We got to stop the run, but we have a lot of passes in our league. So our linebackers got to be quick. They got to be athletes. They got to be the best athletes on the field. To tell you the truth, I basically convert safeties into linebackers. We have hybrids at linebackers, and the biggest thing is what I'm looking for is athletic ability and just a mean streak in a kid. We had this argument as coaches. The age-old argument is that, our kids, the mean streak, are they born with it or is it developed? And honestly, through coaching through my years and going through semi-pro and everything, I really think it's part of your DNA. I really do. If it's not part of your DNA, like Bill Parcells said, the puppies don't bite when they're young. It's
right.
It's not going to happen. So
exactly. And I think every coach has stolen that. The version of that I heard is if they're going to bite, they're going to bite as a pup. And I think you're right. I think there's some of that to be true, that some kids are just born to be linebackers because they're just naturally, just like you said, mean streak.
Yeah, they have the aggressiveness in, and don't get me wrong. I mean, the weightlifting will improve their confidence and it'll improve their ability to get their head in there. But I'll take the scrapper any day. I like the kid that that's a street fighter, that doesn't really care about anything, that wants just use his body as a wrecking ball. Those kids love football. Those kids want, and they have whether it's release from anger issues that they have, or they just love going out there and playing rough sports. Those are the kids I look at. I don't really care about size, to be honest with you. I don't care about I do care about strength that comes into the equation, but I really look for those aggressive kids, and then once I have that, I can coach them and mold them to be what I want them to be. But they got to have that aggressive streak, because if they don't, then they can't play linebacker. That's just my rule.
I think sometimes when you get those kids that I want to be a linebacker, but they don't have that meanness in them.
Right.
I think I've had a couple kids over the years that have earned, not earned it, but they've grown into that mean streak. But right. I think it was always there. They just were maybe afraid to let it go out. Like right. Maybe they were told, hey, you can't be mean as a kid. And, I'll be honest, my oldest son who plays, who I told you plays in college at Georgetown College in Kentucky, he was that way growing up. It's like, because he was always the biggest kid in his class. And I'm like, hey, let's, don't be so rough. And right. It actually took he ended up being a really good wrestler as well. But when he played football, it was just different once he got into high school. And I think some of that was he was forced to learn how to be tough, because, when he started playing, we needed him to play a little offensive line for us, because he had to be mean. It was either be mean or get run over.
Exactly.
And, so I think some of some kids have it there, and they just, that, or my other thing that I got to have a guy, if he's not super duper mean, he's got to have a little bit of orneriness in him that will just I'm going to be a little more sneaky about it. And I think and if you get a kid that's got both orneriness and meanness,
right.
you got a kid that you can really, really work with. He can do the job.
Right. And don't get me wrong. I mean, some kids can flip the switch. These are nice kids off the field. Some kids can flip the switch. Other kids are just their personality is just, you look at him and you're like, man, I'd hate to fight that guy.
Absolutely. If we're going to go to a fight, hey, this guy's coming with me.
Right. Exactly. And you mentioned wrestling. I encourage all my guys to wrestle. I think that's the greatest off-season sport they can do, because of the leverage, the balance, just learning how to do that. And it's just great conditioning too. I mean, I was in wrestling my freshman year, and we did mat drills, and I'll tell you what, man, I'd never puked so much in my life. I mean, that they really put you through the ringer, but it helps. It helps a lot, and I'd rather have them wrestle than any other sport, because, like I said, it fits with football so much. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And there's a toughness part to that, because
Correct.
when you're playing football, if you're the center and the right tackle misses his block, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But when you're in wrestling, if you get pinned, it's on you. Like, you own everything. So
exactly. And then, even when the guy's on top of you and you're about to get pinned, it's your fight. It's the dog in you that's going to try and get you lift up off the mat, get him off you, and fight. And that's what I like. That's a determination and that desire to win, the desire to compete. I love that. That's what wrestling taught me. I thought it was very beneficial to me in my career. And I like I said, I encourage all my guys to wrestle. Some guys aren't really into it, but I tell them, hey, listen, this is going to get you prepared. This is going to prepare you most for the sport that you're going to be playing in. And just give it a try, and you'll see.
And I always like giving the example, especially, when I've had those, like the offensive line, defensive line, they're like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll try it, because they understand a little bit more. But a couple of linebackers I've tried to convince, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, Ray Lewis was a state champion and wrestler.
Right.
So you might want to think about, what does that guy know that I don't?
Yeah, exactly.
He used wrestling to his advantage.
Yeah.
So absolutely, Coach. Well, that's great. So how do you organize your practice for your 4-2-5 guys?
Basically what we do is, we had the whole indie session, and I like to roam as defense coordinator. I don't want to be stuck to a position group. I used to coach inside linebackers because I didn't trust anybody else coaching that specific group, but I grew out of that. I grew more wise, and I started to trust my assistant coaches. Roaming actually gives me the ability to make sure that everybody's on the same page. The secondary is doing what I ask them to do. The defensive line's doing what I need them to do, and the linebackers doing what they're supposed to do. It makes me feel more confident as defense coordinator. So when we go to team, I'm that much more confident in the guys that are going to get the job done and do the plays that we're supposed to do. It's a great thing. What we stress the most is, if you do not hustle and you do not hit, you're telling me you don't want to be here. And those are the guys I send over the offense. And the offensive coordinator is looking at me like, okay, but hey, they can't play defense for me if they're not going to hit and hustle, because that's what it's all about on defense. So we coach a very aggressive unit. We do pursuit drills every day. We do some kind of tackling form up or some kind of tackling drill every day. It's just constantly working on fundamentals. I preach fundamentals, from the stance to our get-offs to, tackling right, having your head up. And then also when we wrap someone up, I want the players to be smart. I want them to go for the football, get the ball out of there, get the football back. It's all these things that you're coaching your guys to do, and it's all coming together. And, practice, that it starts with practice. You got to practice these guys the right way. You got to preach the right things. And, I believe in a tough love method. I really do believe that there's got to be some form of discipline, be strict but fair, right. And all these kids, the kids, when they first get me, they're like, their heads are blown. They're like, wow, where's this guy coming from? But then they learn to respect me after a couple of games. They know where I'm coming from, and why I'm pushing them. I want them to either reach or exceed their expectations. And if they don't reach their expectations, then it's you got to work harder. You got to get on the ball here. So
you talked about hustling, hitting, and wrapping up and stripping.
Mm-hmm.
If the Coastal Carolina BYU game the other night, there was a play on the sideline, and I made sure I kept it as a clip, because those guys were running, and then all of a sudden the guys from Coastal Carolina said, well, he's going to get tackled out of bounds. And they kind of pulled up and like, they're going to get – and then all of a sudden that kid breaks loose.
Right.
Down the sideline, BYU scores, and it makes it a much closer game. And I think that's absolutely right. Like, they've got to hear, you've got to hustle. You've got to hit. Like, you can't assume that your buddy's making the tackle. You've got to go in, I'm going to make the tackle, and the next guy can strip the ball out.
Correct.
Right.
It's you can be a smart football player, but you got to use common sense. If the guy is going to the sideline, you can actually push him out in the sideline, drive him out in the sideline, and that the play over. But never give up, never let up because you're worried either about a penalty or whatever. Right. I mean, you're the aggressor. Finish the tackle, or do your job, and you're fine. I always tell the offensive linemen too, when I coach offensive line, go to the echo of the whistle. Some people might think that's cheap, but I like to do it. I like to go and just, drill somebody back. You know what I'm saying? I like aggressiveness and the effort that's involved in it. I just think that's beneficial to the player, and that's what football is all about.
Yeah, and like you're saying, there's a difference between being tough and aggressive and being dirty.
Correct.
And you've got to be tough and aggressive in this sport, and everybody talks
Correct.
about, well, they're taking the hitting out. So no, they're not. They're not really taking the hitting out. They're putting safety in the game by getting kids to quit using their heads as an implement, right? Use your shoulder. But like you run as hard as you can, you put your shoulder on somebody. You do that enough times, they're gonna be like, I don't want to do that no more. I'm gonna go over here.
Correct. Yeah, if you put a guy on their back enough times, or if you hit the guy enough, they're not going to go at you so hard the next play around, or they're going to start thinking about, well, man, I don't really want to get hit with this guy. Maybe I'll duck out of bounds, or maybe I'll just go down. Maybe I just won't even fight it. That's where you got the game, and that's where you got the guy where you want him to be. Talking about the safety of the sport, a lot of parents come up to me and ask me, hey, coach, tell me don't be biased, but tell me truthfully, is football safe? And I always tell them this, and this is from the bottom of my heart. It's not because I'm coaching, not because I live and breathe and sleep football, but this is the honest to God truth. If you teach the right technique, okay, and tackling it, if you teach what they're supposed to do and you drill it and drill it and drill it where it becomes second nature, the game is safe. It's only when you do not use technique or when you go half-ass. Oh, I'm sorry, Coach.
You're all right. You're all right. Hey, it's okay. It's a coach's show. We all know.
It's only when you do those things is when you're prone to injuries. When you get hurt. But if you go full bore and you use a technique, you use the proper fundamentals that we teach, the game is safe. And I think they're doing a great job. And the safety measures that they're implementing, they're taking the head out of the game, which something needed to change with all the CTE going on and everything else that we're learning now. This game will survive because it's such a great game. But we gotta, in order to ensure its survival, we need to change up some things. And I'll tell you truthfully, Coach, I was against it when it first came out. I thought they were ruining the game. I thought that the game was becoming wimpification, or whatever you want to call it. But as more as a coach, and I'm learning about it and studying on it and reading about it, it makes sense. And your first thing has got to be the safety of your players.
Absolutely. Without them, we don't have a game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Without them, you don't have a game.
Exactly.
Cool, Coach. Hey, Coach, I'm glad that's where your thought processes is. Now, let's talk a little bit more football here. Now, I will tell you, even fronts have a couple problems, especially with the 4-2-5.
Mm-hmm.
There are some specific things that come up. 4 verts. How do you deal with 4 verticals?
Well, we come out in 4-man front, right? We have our 2 linebackers, and we have 2 safeties up high. So we start too high. And if we switch or roll out of it, that's pre-snap, or that's whatever we do to disguise it. So we have a weak side end. It's called the bandit end. And he's more of a hybrid linebacker, outside linebacker, defensive end type. And what we'll do with him is that we'll either drop him into coverage or we'll send him on a rush. Okay. And basically we play cover 4.
Okay.
Against 4 verts, try and get as much pressure on the quarterback as we can so he doesn't have all day back there and he can throw a perfect pass. But, there's ways that we can disguise it. We gamble a little bit about how we do things. We challenge the quarterback to pick the guy that's open, to scan all those reads and make sure our pressure gets to him before he can do that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the 4-man line, and I think the major adjustment that I did was make that weak side end, that outside linebacker type, where he can either drop in the coverage, we can zone blitz, or he can rush like a stand-up linebacker. It's like an overhang almost.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing is, what do you do with that overhang? When we were playing our 4-2-5, we would end up in a 2 high shell If we knew it was like, if they come out in 2x2 and it's 3rd and 10,
Right.
we may want to be having be able to play, our coverage, we called it Kathy. Hey, we're going to be probably being Kathy this week, and just know that's what's going to happen, 3rd and 10. Do you guys play a lot? Do you play any split field coverages where you'll play zone to one side or man to the other? Or?
I eventually want to get to that. But when I was defense coordinator, we couldn't because our kids just couldn't learn it.
Right.
So we basically did zone drops and man-to-man coverage.
Hey, zone drops have been working for forever. I mean, if you watch NFL, the number of teams that are playing cover 3, like they look like they're doing all these. No, they're playing cover 3.
Right. And the thing with split field coverage is you got to have the dudes to do it. I mean, you got to have guys that can read on the fly and get to where they need to be. So if you don't have the guys that do it and they can't read, man, you're going to have guys wide open going down the sideline, waving down airplanes. So, so.
And my wife, God love her, she didn't come from a football family. We started dating in 1994. And so I was just getting into coaching. That was like my 2nd year of coaching. And so she kind of grew up into it. And still to this day, she goes, when there's a deep ball thrown, she goes, I cover my eyes because I don't want to see DBs get beat deep.
Yeah, it's scary, man. I think we all do that as defense coordinators, kind of like wince a little bit when you see that ball flying in the air.
She told me I'm never allowed to go back and coach defensive backs ever again. She goes, I can't handle that pressure.
It is stressful. It's stressful.
It is. Okay, hey, another offense that people sometimes in an even front 4-2 struggle with. How much triple option do you guys see? Like true read the triple.
We only see one team do it in our league. And when I was defense coordinator, we were in another conference. So this conference is new to me. But we have one team that lines up, and it's a triple option. It's a wing T offense. And they go double tight, and, they come at you, and they only have 4 or 5 plays that they run, but they dare you to stop them. And they're a tough football team. And we have a lot of trouble. Stopping that kind of football team. When you go from spread, then you come to this team. The adjustments we have to make, and it's like a totally different style of defense that we're playing because just to match up with that big line and those 3 backs in the backfield that can basically do anything they want to do back there. It's tough. It's tough, and that it all comes back to guys, knowing the technique, knowing what to do. You got to attack the guards. You got to make sure that we play contain those guys outside. Make sure the tight ends don't leak out into the flat, in the down the pipe or whatever. So you got to be really disciplined and know what your assignments are, and that's how you beat wing T. The minute you are not disciplined, the minute you fly off the handle and do something whatever, that's when they got you. That's when they 70 yards down the field. So just got to be disciplined and play the ball.
You talked about it right there in that section. My next question, the other problem with even, and I think this is a problem with any defense. Like, we were an odd front, we were a 3-4 defense, but every time we saw a team do this formation, we're like, oh, okay, so we got to teach these 2 tight ends, double tight formation when they make you balance up.
Yep. And we basically put our outside linebackers, we creep them up, and we have an outside shade of the tight end. They force us to match them up. So we're, I believe in having an even matchup, guys on each side. We're matching the players. I'm really a believer in that. So they force us to come up, and it's not something that you want to do, but it's something that's necessity.
Oh, yeah, they make you do something.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's just something that, we game plan for if we ever come across that, how to fight those tight ends, how to still play contain, know your force player, know your options, your options player, just have all those down, your alley player. And, like I said, just work the technique. Don't go off and fly off the handle doing your own stuff, play ball, play smart.
Right. We had a problem, last year we make the playoffs, first time in school history. And the one problem they showed us, and we thought we had it figured out, is they came out in a double tight, double flanker. So it was 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, and their running back was tough. I mean, he would catch the ball, they'd zone read him, and we're
Yep.
like, guys, we're out of bodies. Like, we don't have, like, the safeties, we've got to get downhill more. And as
Right.
soon as we did that, their tight end ran right past our safety, and it was a touchdown. And it's like, oh.
Yep. Yep. And that's what this Muskego team likes to do. They like to pound the ball at you 5 or 6 times, and then that tight end will block and then release downfield. And usually it'd be wide open because the linebacker is just banging with this guy for 5 or 6 plays, and then he just gets careless and lets him go. So you really got to be disciplined. When we practice for a wing T team, we do it without a football. We tackle everybody that comes out of that backfield. Anybody that can get the ball, we tackle, put it on the ground, and that's our keys. That's how we handle that. And like I said, you got to play the guards, got to get them out of the ball game, so they can't go on the outside and do damage. So you really got to be disciplined when you play these teams and follow the scheme.
And I tell the other thing, you hang around coaching long enough, more teams are going to come back to that style of offense.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started coaching, the triple option was right at the end of its real run from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the 80s and the 90s, you had Nebraska running, the I option offense. They were running the freeze option. Syracuse was running it. And then it kind of went away except for the service academies. And there were still some schools running it. But, it started getting a little bit more to the pro-style offense and those kinds of things. But now we're coming back, and we see teams run true triple option at us. We're seeing teams run wing T at us, but some of it's under center. Matter of fact, Ohio State University's starting center was a guard in a wing T offense.
There you go.
And he was you were talking about having your outside linebacker, like, you see that big guy running at you to kick out. He's like, Coach, I don't know about this. Like, hey, wrong arm and get underneath it, buddy. That's all I can tell you.
Right.
But you'll see those things come back around.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And like I said, I mean, there's fads. The Wildcat was a fad. This spread offense is a fad. It's going to go to power football again. It always switches over. It always, in years' time, it always comes back. Same stuff comes back. Everything that you think is new, it's been done before.
Right.
So it always triangulates. But no, the wing teams we see is that the tackles in the center are usually big guys. Yep. The guards are usually those 175 pound guys that can move out in space and little Rottweilers at you. So we got to make sure that we're tougher and we're more aggressive than they are.
Right. Okay, the last one for a 4-2-5. How do you deal with 3-by-1 formations?
Trips formation.
Yeah.
We basically we man up on number 1.
Okay.
We pattern read on number 2.
All right.
And number 3, we basically take out with an inside linebacker, whatever crossing route, whatever. We'll zone him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been working good for us. We have a thing we have a call for that, and we're one-on-one on the backside, so it's lone bone on the backside. We have a safety in the middle to take away that post pattern because that post used to kill us on that one-on-one on the backside. So and we either blitz the outside linebacker. We always blitz the outside linebacker on the backside. If the running back peels, we always peel back, cover the running back, but we're always applying pressure on the quarterback to make him not comfortable back there and complete a pass. But we play like a read, a cover read on that the trip side.
That's and I try to teach my guys too. Where 1 and 2 line up on that 3-by side, where they're lined up tells you what routes are really coming.
Exactly.
The tighter 3 is to the formation. Hey, he's probably going to run across the formation, so it's not really 3-by-1. They're going to try to get to a 2-by-2 set, and it may end up 4 verticals out of that. He's just trying to get over to the opposite hash. So the kids, you got to teach them. Hey, look, these guys tell you that stuff.
Yeah, and I tell the guys that we're zone team and we're zone against the trips, but it becomes man to man.
After 10 yards, it does.
Yep.
After 10 yards, it's all man.
Yep, exactly. You're by yourself. So, we make sure we tell the kids that. We explain it to them. And like I said, at the school that was at, we really didn't have the kids that understood pattern reading. But against trips, we had to. We had no choice because that's the only way to defend it. We see a lot of bubble screens by number 3.
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And then they'll maybe try and do a vert on the backside, just launch it, just take a shot against us. But for the most part, that system has worked for us, and I'm constantly tweaking the plays on what I can do better and what coverage or what guys I can have back there that'll give us an edge. So I'm sure it'll change in the future, but right now
absolutely. Absolutely.
That scheme works best for us.
Well, the other one I'll tell them is who's on and who's off is going to tell you who is going to run the bubble. We get, people will run number 3 on the bubble for us. I said, but as soon as number 2 is on the line, well, he's out of running the bubble. But if he's back, he could still run a bubble as well.
Right.
And if number 3 is on the line and 1 and 2 are off, well, now you got a chance of 1 running the bubble, or 2 running the bubble, but not likely because now 1's off as well. And, so I think that's the thought process we know of, that we know how it works, but I think it's working on getting it to the kids.
Right. And a lot of times, these kids, they watch football nonstop. They play Madden until their eyes bleed. And you think they would know. They're not really football smart. Their football IQ is not really there. So when I coach and when I'm in the meeting rooms, I always try and teach them the game. I sit them down and say, hey, and this like for instance, the covered tight end, covered or uncovered.
Right.
If they're covered, guys, we don't have to worry about him. And it's just simple things like that, knowing the game. And it's up to us coaches to teach them and mentor them into what this game is all about and how to play this game correctly.
Oh, I thought it was an Ohio thing. I thought only my guys thought that how you play Madden is how you play a real game. The number of times that I hear it's 4th and 14, I'm going for it. What do you mean? Punt the ball and play defense?
Right.
Let's go. That's how you win real football games.
Exactly. You see, and that's what I love when you see Bill Belichick. I know he might not be the popular coach. I mean, everybody hates him because he wins all the time.
Right.
But if you watch him during training camp, or if you see those mic'd episodes, he's constantly teaching those guys.
Right.
He's constantly teaching them field position. Odd things like field position and being smart on this particular play. He's always explaining the game of football, not just a technique or what their assignments are, but he's always explaining the football, and it's worked out great for him. Right. His teams are smart. They are a disciplined group, and they're not all-stars. These guys are a bunch of average nobodies, but when you put them together, they're a formidable team.
Yes, they are.
And I admire the way he approaches the game. I admire the way he coaches his players up. I love that.
I would love to see him, because the one part that I think high school has an advantage over pros and even college, not as much college, but is where our hash marks are.
Right.
I would love to see those guys have to come in and defend offenses when all of a sudden they go trips into the boundary. Well, now what are you going to do? Are you going to put your extra guy over there and give us the field?
Right.
Or are you going to say, well, you can run into 17 yards and I don't care, we'll just run over there?
Right. I always, for me, I always take the field. I always defend the field because, like I said, our conference is mostly spread, mostly athletes, and they basically want to get to that their athletes on wide open spaces. Mm-hmm. So I always cover the field. The boundary, we have less space there. We have the sideline work as our friend. It's an extra defender. So I'm not really worried if they put guys over there. I always have my extra defender to the field side waiting for a big play to come out or sneaking a guy out there.
Well, and I was of very similar thoughts. You're really going to have to do something to get me to put my extra guy over there.
Correct.
Like I don't want it, because I know there's a lot more grass over there. And somebody's like, well, they're putting trips. We got to cover trips. I'm like, you're going to run. What are you going to do with 3 receivers into the boundary?
Exactly. To me, that's just trying to set you up. Right. To me, that's they're not going to run anything special. They're just trying to set you up and see how you align your guys. And if you do put a guy over there, the next time, dude, they're going to go attack that field. Right. So I always try to be 2 steps ahead of your OC. It's hard because it's always a chess match between him and me, and but you just gotta be safe. You gotta play it safe, and these guys aren't pros or high school kids. So
right, awesome.
And that's the other thing, Coach, I like to say is that I try to simplify things. We don't have a complicated defense. We don't have we very basic, but if we run these plays right, we're going to be successful. You know,
Right.
and I always told coaches, I don't want guys to think. When they think, they're dead. You know, I want them to react and play. I want, you know, I just, you know, it's simplify, play simple. Okay,
Right.
easy stuff, and that's how defenses, I think, succeed, is when they're not thinking out there, when they don't have so many assignments that they have to run, where their heads aren't spinning. That, okay, if a guy goes this way, I go this. If the guy just slants inside, I got to do this. And, yeah, I don't want them to. I get one read, boom, it's
Right.
you know, do your job. So
Well, I tell my guys, my favorite view, we film our end zone view, and I tell my linebackers all the time. I said, I know when you're reading your key, and I know when you're trying to think. I said, because your feet never lie to me.
correct.
I said, your
Correct.
feet, I said, if your key goes left and your right foot goes out, I said, you were trying to outguess somebody.
Correct. And coach, let me ask you something. When you're inside linebackers, do you teach them to attack step no matter what on the snap? Like a downfield step?
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of.
Okay. What I did was, and I used to do that too, until I started talking to college coaches. College coaches, when they get into college, they're not taking that read step.
Right.
They're reading with their eyes. And on a pass play, if you go forward, it's a wasted step. We always, as coaches, talk about wasted steps.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically tell my guys, hey, you know what you do. If a guard slants down, you fill. If a guard pulls, you're flowing to over their top. If the guard comes that aggressively at you, we're popping and ripping outside. You know what to do. Your key. Read with your eyes. Don't take that wasted step. And it's been working. I know in high school you want to get them downhill. They're run players first.
Right.
I understand that bit. But I really do think that to cut down on the wasted false step is teach them to trust their eyes, not their feet,
Right.
And I've been teaching that way, and it's been successful for me. It's been doing good.
Depending on what our key is, I teach my guys. I'm like, hey, listen. Some weeks we're keying the guards.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks it's the H back.
Yep.
Some weeks it's the tailback.
Yep.
I said, if it's the guard, you're going to almost mirror him, and you're going to take a small step. And I get on them. I put 2 pieces of PVC. I put one right at their heels, and I put one about 6 inches in front of the thing. I said, I know you want to move. I said, so if you just pick your foot up and put it back down where he's going, I said,
yep.
That's fine. And I said, you can come forward. Now, I get on him too, though. Like, hey, why are you going forward? Like, his head, that guard's head popped up. Why are you coming forward? Pick your foot up, put it down, and then you get to your drop or get to your read, whatever it is. So, I think you're absolutely hit the nail on the head with that one. You gotta trust your eyes. Trust your eyes.
Yeah, because that's what they're going to be taught in college, and I just want them to be prepared. If they do it, go on to play football. Like I said, we're trying to get these kids prepared as possible to make them better players, better skilled players. I think that teaching them that doesn't hurt them at all.
Right.
If you read run, then it's move forward and do your assignment. But it's foolish to take a step forward when you see high hat.
Right. And like for us, like we do a thing with the wing tee where, like, depending on the version of the wing tee that we're seeing, because you got the Buck series, you got the Jet series, you got the Down Belly series. Which one are you seeing? Yep. So depending on what version of the wing tee we see, will tell me. Like, if we're seeing a true Buck series team, there is my guy. If he doesn't come downhill on that first step, but it's based on what that key says. I said, if that key does anything else other than this is how we stop buck sweep. If they are a buck sweep team, you've got to stop that play.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to get the linebackers downhill.
Right. Right.
And everyone's like, well, what about waggle? I'm like, well, if they're doing what I tell them to, I said they're going to stop waggle running downhill, because one of them's going to whack the tight end and the other one's going to whack the fullback coming out.
Yep, absolutely. I'm a big firmer in the guard reads. I know that some people like to read backfield flow, or some read the triangle read. Right. I really am a firm believer in the guard reads, because guards never lie. Right. I've never seen in my 11 years, and even semi-pro, the 8 years I've been semi-pro, I've never seen a guard false pull.
Right.
I mean, who would teach that? A guard.
We actually saw two teams this year.
Really?
That because we were so, and I'm gonna say they put it in for us, but my guys were so good at reading at times.
Mm-hmm.
Like if their guard did this, and I tell them like you, I said, hey, if we're reading the guards, remember, fat kids never lies, but your girlfriends do. And what they would do is that guard would take off, and people started running. They'd run like jet where they're pulling the guard outside, and the quarterback's coming back with the ball opposite because he's reading my backside linebacker.
Right.
And so as soon as he vacates, that quarterback's pulling it, and he's running right where he just left. So I had to slow him down, like, hey, slow down. Look, the quarterback's going to have the ball. Look, you're never going to catch the jet anyway. And if the guard does pull it, I said, we'll get there eventually. Don't sweat it. So.
Right. Yeah, we tend to read the guard, and once we get the read on him, then we key in the backfield. Then we key where the ball is. And the thing is that another thing I learned, Coach, is that a lot of the guys when they get back to their drops and they flip their hips and go to drops, they want to look back and see their placement, where they're going to drop, and then relocate the football. I don't teach them that at all. Nope. I teach them your eyes on the football while they're dropping back, because if you look back to where you're supposed to drop, and then you got to relocate the football, and then you're just all out of sync, and you're that much slower to react. So I teach them. We have cones set up, and we do that until muscle memory, baby. We do that until they can do that in their sleep, to drop right in that right angle. So that's the other thing I learned too in high school football is get rid of that and make sure our eyes are on the ball all the time.
Well, and I teach my guys, hey, when you're dropping, you have to look at the ball. I said, because as soon as you look away from the ball, I said, I go like this, guess where that ball's getting thrown? That ball's getting thrown right back here, right behind me. You're looking at the quarterback. You know where the ball is. You turn to look for a receiver, the ball's getting thrown right where you quit looking at. As it happens every time.
I think the worst thing you could do as a linebacker, instead of being in opposition, is trying to relocate the ball when the balls are flying. I think that's that's where you're caught with your pants down. Right. And I think that you constantly got to know where the ball is, and you constantly got to know your surroundings. You got to have the peripheral vision. And if the guy's coming in your area, I always teach the linebackers to punish any receiver coming in our area. They want to cross, they pay a tax. Boom. And it's just important things like that, little things like that I try and teach linebackers to get the edge.
Yep. Well, what was great for me this year is they were doing these senior send-offs, and they talked to every one of our seniors, and they were posted on social media. And they asked one of my linebackers, they said, what's some advice you want to give to the upcoming classes? And he said, you guys are going to think Coach Bartley has lost his mind, and you're going to think the old man has lost it. He goes, but trust, he knows what he's talking about. He goes, if I would have listened to him a lot sooner and believed what he's telling me is the truth, he goes, I'd have played a lot sooner. Sooner. He goes, because Coach Bartley knows way more than you think he does.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's got to be gratifying. When kids like that, like I said, they don't like me in the beginning. They think I'm too hard and everything, but they learn to respect you. They learn that you're not doing it because you're a grouchy old man. You're doing it because for their benefit, and it's just gratifying when they come up. I keep in contact from all my past players. I'm friends on social media with them, and I like to keep tabs on them. And I'm happy to say that all of them have grown into family men, businessmen, successful guys, and I like to think that, I had a small part in that, and showing them the right path and how to do things correctly. And that's just the great thing about this game, Coach, is that it relates to life so much. Yep. And there's so many lessons you can learn from this, So
absolutely, I'm with you on that. Hearing the successes of my former players is more gratifying than the wins we have and records we break. Like seeing them succeed and doing whatever it is they're doing.
Yep.
You're like, man, hey, we did it right. We did it the right way.
Yep. And as a young naive coach, I always think that the win and loss column was how you describe or how your career is. But I don't think that way anymore. I think the lives you impact, the number of lives you impact is how you judge being a coach, because, there's so many things, there's so many factors in winning that go into it. The Jimmies and Joes mean a lot. I mean, you're not going to always have a talented team. Doesn't mean you're a bad coach. It just means that you don't have the guys that can get the job done, and you're trying your hardest. But it's the lives you impact off the field that really matter, and that really you can hang your hat on. You don't need a championship ring or a trophy. Knowing that and on my social media and seeing guys on how successful they are, though, that's my accomplishment. That's my reward. So
absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, Coach. Well, hey, we call it Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers for a reason. So tell me about the best game wrecker you've ever coached or played against.
Whew. Man, I would say that we had a guy. I would say a guy that I coached. He was undersized. He was a middle linebacker, and he was all heart. I'm telling you, if I could put his heart in some of my linebackers, they'd be all Americans. This guy fought for everything that he ever earned. He was a joy to coach. Like I say, he was undersized, but he was always the guy. He was always the first one to the football. He's always the first one making plays. He was the guy that he watched so much film coach that I would let him, if he wanted to switch a play up, I would actually let him. He's the only player that I've done that for, because I know he watches so much film, and what he sees, he knows exactly what's going to happen. I let him make a call and switch up a front or anything, a blitz or anything. It was a joy to coach him because you knew he had conquered so much adversity in his life. He had so many coaches, and I don't know who these coaches are, but I was reading his social media today that he's had some coach. He just graduated from Oshkosh, got a bachelor's degree, and he played 4 years at Oshkosh football. And there was a coach there that said was his motivation. It wasn't me, but it was a coach that said he asked the coach if he would help him out with recruiting or whatever, and the coach said, "No, you're not going to play football, and you're not that good anyway." And he used that. Yeah. Imagine a coach telling your kid that. I was telling him, but he used that as motivation, and not only to prove himself right, but he wanted to prove the coach wrong. That was his motivation. And I'm telling you, man, this kid deserves all the credit in the world, and I'm really happy for him. And it's just one of those stories that make coaching such a delight. It's I'll never forget him. He was inspirational to me. Back then when I coached him, I didn't get to coach him his senior year because our head coach moved on, and with that, when new coach, new staff comes in,
absolutely.
So I had to go up. I had a great time there, but it was time to move on, and I didn't have the pleasure of coaching the senior year. And I wish I did. Now that I heard that what this coach said, but he was a joy. It was great. It was one of those moments that you'll never forget as a coach, and you enjoy those moments. Yeah, you cherish them.
Great. Okay, so what's the biggest slobber knocker hit you've ever seen?
Oh, geez. Man, besides NFL hits, or
just one that you've seen as a coach or a player.
Okay, all right. The biggest hit I've seen is when the fullback did a fullback dive, and the middle linebacker and him met right between the line, and boom, you could hear the collision a mile away, and the linebacker stymied him. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And both kids were down on that play. And we had to go out there and, and hey, and the first thing he did, you roll over, and I said, "Hey, you all right, man?" He said, "You're good." He's like, "Coach, should I stop him?"
Yes,
I'm like, "Yeah,
that is how you do it.
Man. You knocked him dead, baby. You all right though? Your head? Yeah, I'm good. I just need a second. Okay, good." So he was out. He was out for a while after that. But that was the biggest collision I saw. And just you can see those two guys just smash each other. One trying to get across the goal line, one trying to stop him from getting across the goal line. Mm-hmm. It was a battle of wills, and I'm happy to say my guy won.
There you go. That's awesome. Hey, you know what? That did I stop him? That's all you get. Like, that kid was selling out. I love it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Coach. It's time to put a little bit of pressure on you with the bring in the house questions. Okay. 5 rapid fire questions. No explanation. I'm going to ask you kind of like choose between 2 things. You're just going to give me your immediate response.
Okay.
Best player to ever win the Heisman?
That would be Bo Jackson win the Heisman.
Yes, sir.
That's him right there.
Hey, right. Like we're from the air, like Bo Jackson's a god. That is
Yep.
absolutely right. Okay. Which one of these college football plays is the most epic? Flutie to Phelan when BC beats Miami, or Vince Young running a touchdown run that wins the national championship in the Rose Bowl versus USC.
I would say Flutie with the amazing pass, the Hail Mary, and
Yep.
to win like that against Miami, and they were underdogs in that game if I remember correctly.
Right.
And to win it like that in that fashion, awesome. Can't beat it.
All right. Best NFL linebacker of all time.
And hands down, Lawrence Taylor.
Okay, good. All right, now we're going to hit you a little bit closer to home. One of them, you're a Gen Xer just like me. We watched a lot of reruns on TV as kids. Gilligan's Island.
Yep.
Ginger or Mary Ann?
I'd say Ginger.
Ginger. All right.
Yep.
I'm a Mary Ann guy. I'm a Mary Ann guy, right? Okay, and you're from Wisconsin, so here's the battle. Cheese curds or Colby cheese?
Oh, geez. I have to go with cheese curds.
Cheese curds.
I love those. Yep,
You know, I had that friend I told you about, grew up in Oshkosh, and she was talking about cheese curds. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she brought it back to us one time for break. And I was like, okay, I can kind of get after this.
Yeah. They're
Coach,
good. They're good.
I appreciate you coming on, brother. This has been a blast.
I had a great time, and thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Right. Well, hey guys, what's going to happen here is when this gets published at the bottom, Coach's Twitter account's going to be on there. Go on and follow him. Coach also has the Coach Chudada's Chalk Talk on Facebook. It's a nice group to be on. Always talking ball on there. Coach, I think you're doing a great job for Waukesha North. I think you're doing a great job for the coaching community around the world. And I'm glad to have you on my podcast, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. It was an honor being here. Thank you very much.
Hey, guys, I hope to have you on next time to the next episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. Hey, see you next time.